Go live to the Trade Minister now on the back of the ongoing widening rift between Australia and France, France and the UK, France and the US as well. It's all happening. Let's bring in Dan Tehan now. Minister, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. I'm just wondering, have you been able to speak to your French counterpart since the contract with Naval Group was torn up?
No, look, Peter, obviously I haven't tried to do that. I'll be travelling to France for the OECD ministerial meeting in about 2 weeks' time, and I look forward to hopefully being able to talk to him then. As part of that trip, I'll also be going to Brussels to meet with the EU trade representative, Valdis Dombrovskis. The 12th round of the Australia-EU Free Trade Agreement negotiations begin on the 12th of October, and so I plan to be in Brussels to talk to the EU trade representative about that 12th round and the substantial progress that we've been making on the Australia-EU Free Trade Agreement, especially in the 10th, 11th, and what we hope will be a very good round again with the 12th round.
Do you have any doubts about that? I mean, is the free trade deal with the EU in any kind of trouble at the moment?
Look, all the signals continue to point to the fact that the EU want to continue to have that negotiation. The 12th round will go ahead, and it's just very much business as usual when it comes to our negotiations on that free trade agreement. Everything points to the fact that it's in both the European Union and Australia's interests that we continue that FTA, obviously in terms of the EU's desire to get a foothold into the Indo-Pacific, where the economic weight of the world lies, is there. It was very apparent when I was in Europe in May this year. Obviously, for Australia, the European Union is a key and significant market. So the 12th round will go ahead as usual. We're hoping that it will build on substantial progress that's been made on the 10th and the 11th round as we seek to conclude these negotiations next year.
Okay, so you're not expecting any kind of trade blowback whatsoever, if not from the EU, then what about just France itself?
Well, obviously, we have a substantial economic relationship with France itself. It's one where France exports more to Australia than Australia exports more to France. It's very much in the interests of both countries, for consumers, for businesses, and overall the economic relationship benefits both nations. So I can see no reason why that economic relationship shouldn't continue to grow and flourish, because it's in the interests of Australia and it's in the interests of France.
So that should be kept as a separate issue as opposed to the torn up $90 billion attack class contract.
Well, one of the things we always seek to do as we pursue our national interests is make sure that we pursue all parts of our national interests with as much vigour as we possibly can. So we pursue the security aspects of our national interests and we pursue the economic interests of our national interests. And since I've become Trade Minister, I've been very clear that being proactive is one of the things that I want as a hallmark of my time as being Trade Minister. And I'll continue to pursue our economic interests as vigorously as I can, whether it be with the EU, whether it be with India, where I'll also visit as part of this trip to advance the free trade agreement negotiations we're conducting with India at the moment. So it's full steam ahead on pursuing those economic interests as far as I'm concerned.
Should France have been included in those conversations before the announcement last week of the AUKUS agreement?
Well, obviously, the negotiations and the discussions that were taking place were done at a very, very high level, and secrecy and making sure that only those who needed to know knew what was going on was a hallmark of getting the outcome that was in our sovereign national interests. And when you're pursuing an outcome like this, sometimes keeping it very tight and making sure that it remains at that top secret level is absolutely vital, because as you know, we're not only dealing with nuclear submarines, but we're dealing with an agreement or a partnership which will enable us to get access to the latest cyber technology, the latest AI, the latest missiles. And one of the things you've got to be able to show is that your ability to be able to protect the information that involves being part of a partnership like that. And that's why secrecy was so important when it came to nailing this agreement, which is absolutely in our sovereign national interest.
But given France has such a large footprint in the Indo-Pacific, why not bring them in as well?
Well, obviously, we have to make considerations that what ultimately is best for our security in the Indo-Pacific. What sort of arrangements, what sort of partnerships? Now, France is obviously a key component of that and a key partner in that. But getting access to this partnership with the US and the UK, a partnership that goes not only across the ability for us to be able to get nuclear-powered submarines, but to get access to that missile technology, that AI, those cyber capabilities at the top level is absolutely in our national interest. And that's why these discussions had to be held at that top level, at that top security level on very much a need-to-know basis.
Sure, yeah, but couldn't AUKUS have been stronger if France was in on that too? I'm not even going to bother working out what that acronym would be.
So when it comes to AUKUS, obviously what we've been able to do is to get ourselves in a partnership which the US very much limits to countries that they see as capable of protecting the information that they need. Now, the UK has been a part of that partnership for over 50 years. That enabled them to get access to the technology to drive nuclear capable submarines. We now have been included in that partnership, and it's a partnership not only for submarines, as I've said, for missiles, for cyber, for AI, and very much that is what's driven this partnership and our want to be part of it, because we very much see it as part of our national interest.
So it basically wasn't our call. It wouldn't have been our call to include them.
Well, as part of the discussions that were had with the US and the UK, obviously all these things have to be weighed up as to what, in the end, will lead to us getting access to that type of capability, which will enable us to defend ourselves in the Indo-Pacific.
Sure.
And part of that is that in terms of the US and the UK and their sharing of this, absolutely key capability, this key equipment that you need to protect your nation. They said that they would have Australia as part of this, but we obviously have welcomed that, and it means that our ability to secure our country has increased as a result of it.
Do you feel a need to apologise for that though when you go and meet your counterparts on your trip? Is that something that you're going to have to do?
Well, I think we've made it clear that we understand France's disappointment with this decision. So I think we've got to be absolutely clear in expressing the view that we understand why France is disappointed in this decision. But we also will be very clear that ultimately, in the end, we've taken a decision which is in our national sovereign interests, and very much in the same way that France makes decisions that are in its national sovereign interests. So I think ultimately, in the end, that's the issue that we have to work through, is so that France understands why ultimately, in the end, we've taken the decision that we have, and why we understand when France takes decisions that it does in its national sovereign interests.
Okay, Dan Tehan, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, Peter.